Welcome to the Embodying Excellence Podcast. I'm your host, Carlo, and I'm here with Brenden. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you. What about yourself?
I am good. What are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about self-control, something that's unfortunately not a common thing.
No, and I think as well, it's one of those topics that gets booted around a lot online as well, and especially because we are beginning to see more and more people live in this digital world rather than in the real world. A lot of what's purported online isn't actually reality either. That's my personal opinion as well. And so, like you said, self-control is not very common, but it's also an important aspect when it comes to developing both your success, whether that's in your personal life, your business life, your relationships, and also being honest. And so, because the thing is, we can have self-control, we can have self-discipline, and at the same time, if we're not honest about ourselves and what it is that we want, that self-control can then lead to both either crashing out or resenting your discipline because it's not anchored to a purpose. And so what I feel that we could dive into today is both what is self-control, what's it good for, some negative effects, but then also at the same time take a deep dive on both how we use self-control to both elevate ourselves and then also at the same time where we may have gone wrong.
Yeah. That's the best way to look at it, I think.
What would you say then your definition of self-control is then?
Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. Like, in terms of like the word, like how it is, like it's just being in control of yourself, more or less of your actions more than anything, or what because your thoughts sometimes you can't control because you've got sort of outside elements there coming in, and sometimes you think in certain ways, you're influenced in certain ways because of those things that happen around you, but it's the ability to be able to filter those things that come through and be the one that makes the decision on which way they want to go, rather than letting the outside influences have full total control on what that is. Yeah,
that's pretty spot on to what I have. Like for me, to put it simply, self-control is the ability to do what you're going to say that you're going to do, and no compromise, no excuses, because there are temptations. Like if you're going to be on a diet and your place is full of things that aren't on your diet, then the likelihood of you cheating increases naturally, because like it's there within your proximity, right? And exactly. In your mind, you're going, I want something sweet. I want that dopamine hit right here, right now. And then self-control also has to do with your thoughts. And so if you're a person who is more geared negatively, and this is not a bad thing, it's more so that when circumstances happen, you tend to shift towards the negative, then that's what you're going to continue to purport and project into reality. And so what happens then is, if you aren't in full control of the way that you think due to outside elements, being circumstances or other people's opinions that you think matter more to you than your own opinions, then at the same time, there isn't any self-control. Self-control is the ability to decide. And so that's the simplest way that I can put self-control. It is your ability to decide. Because if you're at the point of decision, then that's where the most control is. Because if you're blaming circumstance, or you're blaming other people, or you're blaming things that aren't in your control, you don't have it. And so for you to say that I have full autonomy, full self-control, is when you have the ability to solely make a decision and then take full responsibility for it as well. And so whether that is cheating on your diet, whether that is not doing all the daily tasks that you've set for yourself as well, that's if you're not planning for the week, whatever it is, when you decide that you're going to take certain actions and you take them, that's when you have self-control. when you decide that you're no longer going to think a certain way, or you're not going to act in a certain way when things happen, and then you do exactly that, and you think the way that you've decided that you're going to think, you have self-control. That's as simple as it is. And so for me, there are everyday circumstances where I do demonstrate that I don't have the self-control today. I don't believe self-control is binary. I think it's on a continuum, because there's going to be temptation all the time, whether it's lust, like if you're in a relationship and you either aren't completely committed, which is a terrible idea, don't do that, right? Or you are single and you're looking to either attract somebody or get into a relationship. There is going to be that aspect where you have your values, you have the decisions that you're going to make about who you decide to be in your life, but then also there's also going to be that temptation of lust, like, oh hey, she's pretty attractive, oh hey, he's pretty hot, he's a little bit messed up in the head, she's a little bit crazy, right? But I want that chaos. Like that's not self-control. That is just looking for trouble, to put simply, but we can do a deep dive into that on another episode. But at the same time, understanding that you're at the forefront of making that decision, that's where self-control is. And so when you fully understand that self-control isn't on a binary basis and it's on an actual continuous spectrum, you'll begin to realize that a lot of what you feel is completely natural. So another great example is, like I was saying before, because the world's so digitized, we always get spam in our feeds, especially as guys. You need to have self-control, you need to take control of your life, you need to have discipline, you need to have focus, you need to do this, you need to do that, right? It's basically saying you're a piece of shit, you need to be doing better. And so a lot of the time, especially guys that are living on their phones, it's how they're going to feel every single day, right? And so when your phone is dictating how you feel of all the motivational content that you watch, it's just a pure example of how little self-control you actually have, where if you go, hey, I know exactly what you're saying, I'm going to get off my phone and I'm going to go do those things, then that's when it's demonstrated that you have self-control.
So, exactly. Yeah.
And so what I want to point out is that as good and as important as self-control is not listening to 700 reels a day going, you need to focus, or you need to be motivated, or you need to do this. Self-control is deciding that, hey, this is what I set out to do. Here's how I set out to think about what needs to be done. And then I go out and do it. You know what? Those reels on TikTok or on Instagram are a good reminder, but they're not the forefront of my discipline. They're not the forefront of my focus. They're not the forefront of my self-control. They're only just reminders, and I should treat them that way, not the entire base of my existence. And so having self-control is necessary, but at the same time, you also have the other end of the spectrum where perhaps you have no self-control. And so that doesn't mean that you're a failure, or that you're an idiot, or that things just cease to exist anymore. It just means that you took a misstep. And so you just need to take a step in the other direction and not continually just rat off to yourself how useless you are. And so knowing that self-control is on a continuum, I hope that this helps you finally understand that regardless of where you are in this present time, there's always an opportunity for change. And it just means that you need to center yourself, take a deep breath, and take the next step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, it's got to do with your standards as well, and that purpose, like you touched on before as well. Like if your standards requires you to do said thing or not to do something, that is something that you can reflect on when there's a decision to be made. Like, does this align with my goals? Does this abide by the standard I set for myself? And by making that decision, then if you follow through and do the thing that aligns with your standards, you've got like good self-control. And if you don't, then your self-control isn't, or it's a lack of self-control there, and it's not aligned, and you've got to sort of work on just one step at a time, trying to tick off that task or to make the right decision that time, and then the next time it's going to be a lot easier because you know that you've made that decision at the crucial time to align with your goals then, and you know you're capable of doing that.
Absolutely. You need exposure as well.
Yeah.
Like, you need exposure to the lack of self-control. And so I don't think people are observant enough about how they go about living their lives, and a lot of us just live on autopilot. And I can attest, because there are times where I do live on autopilot, and I'm beginning to notice loops in my life where things aren't panning out the way that I would hope. And so instead of making a change, I continue repeating the loop. And so a lot of the times this will happen. And so this is not where you go, oh, hey, I quit. It's, oh, hey, you know what? I need to make a slight adjustment. I need to make a slight change. Yeah. And that's what you said. It just matters about the decision that you're making in the moment as well. Yeah. And so when you are beginning to live moment to moment, then that's where the presence of self-control comes in. Because a lot of the time, we either live in the past or we live in the future, and a lot of that then dictates the wrong actions that we take. And so if we had a messy breakup, or we had a relationship that didn't pan out the way that you would hope, like it feels like a sense of betrayal. And so we use different things to cope with that betrayal, because betrayal is very difficult to both comprehend and to actually feel and experience. And so it's a lot of the reason why people tend to gain weight. It's a lot of people why they tend to be isolated, because the level of experience and energy that they put into this particular relationship, for them to then fall through the cracks and pull the rug from right under them, like that's where that test comes in. And you go, you know what, this is going to test my self-control, this is going to test my patience, this is going to test my energy. And so you make a decision in that moment about how it's going to affect you. And so I think I was listening to Hormozy, and he was talking about it last week, where he goes, you're allowed to mourn, but then also at the same time, you still need to live your life and do the work. And so that just means that in that moment, you've decided that this is your period of mourning, and then this is now the period where you get to go out and do what you need to do, because you're still alive. Yeah. And so that's the real important thing, is that you need to decide that it's going to take X for you to go through this process, and then you then move on to Y. As cold as that sounds, it's very important, because a lot of the time, and including myself, I perpetuated this victim narrative where I let the actions of somebody else and circumstances of life dictate my decisions. And so when that's happened, that has demonstrated a lack of self-control on my part, because I wasn't fully conscious of the things that were happening in my life due to my decisions, because I let the past reflect said decisions, and I let also circumstances dictate said decisions. And so now the present me has been going through the consequences of my past decisions. And so when you begin to figure out that the present moment is a result of your past decisions, then you're better able to make current decisions that will then lead to the better future that you're after. That is the power of self-control. And Andy talks about that in the power of 1000. You are the result of the last 1000 days. Yeah. And so your next 1000 days is determined by the decisions that you make today, but also at the same time, you need to understand that you are deciding. It's you. It's on you. There isn't anybody that's coming to save you. No. There isn't anybody that's going to give you permission to make decisions. It is for you to make said decisions and then move down the track. And so you also can't be skeptical about sitting on the fence either, because indecision is worse than making a poor decision.
At least you know,
well, that's right. You don't learn otherwise. Yeah. And so, again, I'll tell you, from 7 years of sitting on the fence about different things, I will tell you that it is a lot worse, because I've learned to recognize a lot of loops that have been happening. And so being able to discern between a said loop and then also acting on said loop are two very different skills. And so it does take a level of self-control to be able to identify loops, and then another level of self-control to be able to decide and act differently. And so the important thing to understand is that being in control means that you are deciding, no one else. You can't go and blame your parents for your poor upbringing that has put a toll on the way that you make decisions. You can't blame not having any money to not be able to go out and make money. You can't blame your friends for being overweight. You chose to go out with your friends. You chose to spend all your money. You still chose to spend time with your parents without any accountability on their part, and without any accountability on your part either. So are you making the decision, or are you just letting things slide? And that's what you were referring to back to standards, and having those set standards and having those boundaries and not letting small things slide, because when you let small things slide, you begin to let big things slide.
Exactly. It starts with one little thing, and then before you know it, you've lost the complete control over everything in your life.
Absolutely. And we've both been there. When we first started training together, you were just going through the motions at the gym. I know I was just going through the motions at the gym as well, and we're both pretty poor for each other, but then we decided on the spot that we were going to make things work. For some reason, you believed me, right? And then also at the same time, I trusted that you were going to do the work. And so we both learned together, which is, I believe, the value of our friendship, because we were both in pretty difficult places, and I've been in a pretty difficult place as well, and we've just always been there for one another. And so I thank you. And at the same time, being able to fully recognize but also embrace, that's another key constituent in evolving, is actually fully embracing the circumstances that you have been through, but then also deciding that this is no longer the normal anymore. And you learning to let go is another really key concept as well, that I know on many occasions that I haven't done, but beginning to learn how to has helped me then also evolve. And that's also part of the self-control elements here. And so self-control, I think, can be broken down into three things. It can be both thought, decision, action. But that's literally all it comes down to, because when you're able to get a grip on the way that you think, then the way that you decide on things will change. You're no longer deciding on fear. You're deciding on facts. You're deciding on intuition. You're deciding on data, whatever it is, so that then that action changes as well. And so it all begins with the thought that plays out in your mind. And then you go, you know what? I'm going to decide something different. And don't get me wrong, you don't have to have the perfect thoughts to make the perfect decision either, right? You can still go, hey, look, I think like shit, but I can decide to do something differently. And often when you do that is when the thoughts get better. You don't wait till the thoughts get better before you make a decision. You often make a decision before the thoughts get better. And you take the action before the thoughts get better. Because a lot of the time when you do take the different action, then the thoughts change, because then your belief system changes, the scenarios change, the circumstances change. And so by deciding immediately that you're going to make a change, that's where you implement the most self-control. Where by waiting for thoughts to come across, you're letting outside influence go, hey, you need to change this, hey, you need to change that. You need to do all these things before you go out and do. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. You need to be able to do, and you need to be able to do more and more and more before it becomes better, because then you can figure out where your mistakes are. And then when you do get better, then that's when you can start implementing new things. And so when you're going into a new habit, like into a new health routine, then you need to be training more. You need to be training more. You need to be training more. Then when you've done a lot of training and you see some results, you go, you know what, where can I tweak? Where can I make things better? So then you make the things better. And so whatever it is that you're already doing, you've now tweaked. Now that you've tweaked these things and you've gotten really great at those things, man, you've got an exceptional result. All right, how can I enhance that now? You try something new. And so that's where the self-control comes in. You go, all right, well, I've been thinking a certain way and I need to decide to continue thinking a different way. And so then you decide to think a different way, you decide to think a different way, you decide to think a different way on all different scenarios. And you go, oh, wait a minute, I'm getting slightly better results. All right, let's keep doing this. And then you go, all right, well, how can I enhance this? How can I make this better? And then you decide to do better. You decide to do better. You decide to do better. Oh, wow, okay, these results are now exceptional. All right, so what new action now can I take in order for me to fully enhance, fully grow to whatever my goal might be? You're already on the way. And so by starting the path, by taking the first step, the path then appears. You don't wait for the path to appear, you take the first step first.
Yeah, exactly. And familiarity comes a lot into it as well in terms of the loop idea, because in a way, your mind is controlling your decisions, because it, like in a certain situation, say if you used to doing something a certain way, like responding to an event in a certain way, right? Say if someone treats you poorly, for example, right? What's happened in the past, like the way you responded in the past, your mind's going to be teaching you, oh, what's familiar to me is to respond in this certain way. It's to react with my emotions and just blow up the shit out of them, rather than just think about it, breathe, and speak to them politely and sort of be the better person about it. And at that point, you can sort of either have your mind sort of control or revert back to what was familiar, sort of controlling the way, or go back to the standards that you've set for yourself and control it in a way that aligns with that.
Absolutely. And understanding that you're at the center point of that said decision. And so when you are having a dispute and your emotions begin to come up, then understanding that both you aren't your emotions and you aren't your logic, and you're a human being who is experiencing something that's happening, you're better able to make a discernment between how you react and how you respond. And so there isn't a wrong decision, and what ends up happening is we take emotion too much into account and reason very little. And so, but then when we take reason into account too much, then we get walked over. And so understanding that there is a medium somewhere in the middle, and then also accepting full responsibility of the circumstances, that demonstrates a high level of self-control. I think Aristotle said it best, is that when you can entertain a thought without accepting it, that's the mark of an educated mind, right? And so a lot of the time we think of all these catastrophic things because we are negatively geared for survival, but also at the same time, if we don't accept said thoughts and we move on to the next thought or a thought that is promising for us to develop, then we are educated. But there are going to be times where you're going to want to punch a fucker in the face, right? And there is going to be a time where it's going to be completely tolerated and understandable, but it does not mean that you will do it. And so that's basically the premise of self-control, right? It's understanding that you're not, it's understanding that tomato is a fruit, but you're not going to put it in a fruit salad, right? And so, or it's realizing that you can't change the circumstances of your past, but also you can build on the future by deciding that you're going to build on the future rather than ruminating on the past. And so there's just that difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? So having all of this intelligence and all of this awareness is the knowledge. The wisdom is in its application.
Yeah, it's making the decision based on that past experience. Like, you know where this decision has led before, and that wisdom is whether or not you want to go back there and continue that loop, or if you want to make the decision that aligns with your standards and everything, and move forward.
Absolutely. And you also need to be well aware of your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, because a lot of what we decide and what we feel interrelate with one another. And so we can consciously be aware of the loops, and we can be consciously aware of the decisions that we're making. There are going to be moments in time where there are going to be circumstances where you are going to be triggered and your brain just goes into autopilot and you do the things that don't align with your standards because of what you were saying before. It feels familiar.
Yeah.
And so the first foremost important thing is that you need to remove said trigger. I'll give you an example. Yesterday. So at the moment, I'm currently on a meat and fruit diet, meat, fruit and vegetables, right? But yesterday, I decided that because I had both the day off and I'd done all of my computer work, I thought, you know what, I was going to start watching a new show that I was interested in.
Yeah.
And so I started watching said show, and it was a really good show. And so I started watching more and more episodes. And so throughout last year, before I started this plan, I was binge watching TV, and I'd stay up all hours of the night eating shitty food, and it made me gain a lot of weight that I didn't really necessarily need to gain, right? And then I justified it that, I was working and I don't like my job, and all these different excuses that I was making to justify this loop. Anyway, this loop came about yesterday again, right? And so I'm watching the show and I'm thinking, you know what would be really good right now? Popcorn. Not part of the diet, but I ate it anyway, right? You know what would be even better? Chips. You know what? I ate it anyway, right? And it wasn't part of the diet, but I immediately noticed the loop. And I was going, I did this while I was watching this show, and I've done this while I was living in the unit and the apartment. Okay, this is a loop that I've created. Oh, okay, I know how to stop it. And I've stopped the loop. Like, I haven't even thought about those things now. And I know for a fact now that if I spend any more than an hour in front of the TV, it's going to happen again. And for me to prevent that, I just need to step away from the TV. And that's what the TV is designed to do. It's designed to keep you there, and the streaming services, so you don't have to play commercials or anything like that. That's what it was originally. That's what it was designed to do. Right. And so I'm thinking, I can't blame the TV, because that's literally what the television was designed to do. It's designed to keep you there, right? And can't blame the snacks either, because that's what the snacks were designed to do, to keep you eating, right?
Well, exactly.
And so
you've got chemicals and shit to make you more addicted.
Exactly right. So the only thing that I can point the finger to is me, right? And so I go, okay. And the thing is, I didn't even really feel that shit about it, because I'm going, dude, like those things were literally designed to do exactly what I was doing last night. And so I go, all right, so in that case, I'm going to turn the TV off and I'm going to go to bed early. And I did go to bed early, right? And so at the same time, I said to myself today, you know what? Out of all the food that I ate yesterday, I'm just not going to eat today. I'm going to fast today, so that then my body can get back into equilibrium and go, you know what? I'm back. And that's what happens. Sometimes you do get off the track. It does happen. And so the only way to then rectify getting off the track is by getting back on and going, all right, I need to be doing this differently. I need to be doing this differently. And you actually go out and you go do them. And so
that's where control comes in. Because if you didn't have self-control there, right, you would still be eating it now. You wouldn't even be here.
No.
You'd be still eating your popcorn and chips.
Oh, sorry, Brenden, can't do podcasts today. I'm busy.
Binge watching. Right, so that's where it comes in. Like, if you didn't develop self-control, and it's a skill as well, self-control. It's not something you're born with. Not everyone's born with self-control. The more you practice it, the more you get better at it with anything. And that's like discipline, confidence, all them things. They're things that you have to do things continually to get better at.
Absolutely. And I think that sums it up. Like, self-control is a skill. So if you're there going, I have no self-control, I do this, I do that. Well, incorrect. You do. It's with every decision that you make, and it's a skill. So the more you do, the better you get. The better you get, the better things get. And then you'll be taking different actions those different actions will lead to ultimately part of the path that you're on to your success. You're not stuck. You're not in the way of yourself. You're just on the way. This just so happens to be a rougher part of the journey. But then when you make up ground by making better decisions and fast tracking towards whatever it is that you're going towards, you'll end up where you want to be. Yeah. And I think that pretty clearly sums up what self-control does, what it looks like, and how it can help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for tuning into today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned. Please like and subscribe and share to your friends. Yep. And see you on the next episode.
Yeah, share the show, guys. Have a great day. Thank you.
Don't be a hoe.
Thank you.